botanical folk tales of Britain and Ireland. Well, the islands of Britain and Ireland hold a rich heritage of plant folklore and wisdom, and this book is ideal. I've been reading it throughout the year, and there's a story for every season. The introduction to this one: the 1st of May is Pinch Bum Day. The 2nd of May is Stingy Nettle Day. It's May Day, Beltane, high spring, and the plant world is full of energy. This story is called The Fairy Shawl. Now, tomorrow is the 1st of May, and this story is very appropriate. So if you're sitting comfortably, I shall begin. Mura was a good girl who grew up on a farm, and she worked hard. She had 7 brothers younger than herself, and so there was a lot of work to do. But no matter how long the days, she would always remember to leave buttermilk and soda bread out for the little people every night. Why? Because it was the right thing to do. As Mura's brothers got a little older, she went looking for work. The first farm door she knocked on, the farmer's wife opened. "Do you have any paid work?" asked Mura. "Can you spin?" asked the farmer's wife. "Yes, in fact, they say I'm very good at spinning," said Mura. "Good, you're hired. Come in," said the farmer's wife, looking delighted. "I'm fed up working so hard. I can leave you to do the work, and I'm going into town to the fair." She put on her best bonnet, as if she couldn't wait a minute more. "All this carded fleece here is to be spun, Mura," she said, waving at 5 large sacks of creamy white fleece. "The weaver's coming to collect the wool tomorrow, so be sure that you finish it by the time I get home at nightfall, or there'll be hell to pay." The farmer's wife flounced out of the door to her carriage. Mura looked at the sacks of fleece in despair. "There must be 4 full days' work here," she thought. "I'll barely manage a quarter of it. But if I don't do it, she'll make sure I never find work again. What am I to do?" Mura span and span all that morning, so fast that her fingers were bleeding and her mind was racing. By lunchtime she was scarcely halfway into the first sack of fleece. It was no good. She would never get it done. So Mura stopped spinning and went over to the kitchen window, and through a blur of tears she looked out at an old hawthorn tree in the garden, all twisted trunked and lichen covered. Its strong green leaves were twirling around as if they were dancing. Even though it was a fine still day with no wind, the leaves of the elder tree and the rowan tree were doing the same thing. "Perhaps the good people are here today," she thought. "Could they help me? After all, I have been their friend and always remembered them." She went out into the noontime sunshine of the garden and told her woes to the elder and to the rowan. Then she took off her boots and stockings, went to the hawthorn, and started to walk around the tree, her bare feet treading quietly but firmly in the grass. Moving clockwise, as the old stories said. "Good people, I need your help with my spinning. Please help me," she repeated over and over. Mura circled the thorn tree once, twice, 3 times, repeating her words over and over. There was no reply. She kept going, 4, 5, 6 times. Still nothing. On the 7th time, just as her bare feet completed the circle, a gruff little voice spoke. "I know where the good people are. I can find them for you, Mura." There was a rustling noise, and the elder tree and rowan tree started to shake. And then a hairy, ugly little man tumbled out of the trees, grinning all over. "This must be the Fenadiri." Mura quickly curtsied to him. "We know you, Mura," said the little man, and his black eyes twinkled. "You're a good girl. Now I suggest you do exactly what I say. Go back to the kitchen, throw open the door to the garden, and say clearly and loudly, 'All welcomes on you, magic spinners.' After that, go away from here. Go for a nice walk until the evening falls and the moon is rising over the mountains, and then you must return to the kitchen. But, this is very important, before you go back in, knock on the door, open it and say, 'All blessings on you, magic spinners.' Then you shall see what they have done to help." And with that, the Fenadiri bowed low and disappeared. So Mura went back to the kitchen and flung open the kitchen door to the summer sunshine. "All welcomes on you, magic spinners," she cried to the garden. There was no reply, but Mura didn't wait to find out more. She went for a long walk all through the heaths, out to the coast and back round again through the trees. When the darkness fell and the bright sickle moon began to rise over the mountains, she turned around and went back to the farmhouse. The door was closed, but as she got closer, Mura could hear clicks and whirs and high-pitched songs going on inside. She walked round the house and tried to peep through the window, but it had been completely covered by a cloudy white curtain, and Mura couldn't see inside. So she went back to the kitchen door, gathered up all her courage, knocked on the door, and flung it open. The kitchen was full of tiny people, each no higher than Mura's knee. They were dressed in bright colours, a red cap here, a yellow jacket there, striped stockings, and each was sitting in front of a miniature spinning wheel, spinning so quickly both the wheels and the fingers of the good people were a blur. In the middle of the kitchen on the table was a heap of woolen skeins of many different patterns. There must have been hundreds of them, and more were being thrown into the centre from the spinners as she watched. "All blessings on you, magic spinners," cried Mura. Immediately the good people all leapt up, and the wheels whirred to a stop. They threw their last skeins of wool onto the table, hoisted their spinning wheels onto their shoulders. Without a single word, they filed out of the kitchen door past Mura, into the moonlight, and away. All that was left in the kitchen was the huge pile of woolen yarn on the table. The sacks of fleece were gone. Mura walked back into the kitchen and sat down, dazed. She had only been there a few minutes when there was a clatter of cartwheels in the yard, and the farmer's wife came home, a little worse for wear and smelling of drink. She was astonished, and not a little annoyed, to see the skeins of wool on the table, because she had known the task she had set for Mura was impossible. The farmer's wife peered closer at the wall. "It's all spun into funny patterns," she cried. "Don't try to tell me this is your own work. You've been messing with them, haven't you?" Mura's cheeks flushed. "Yes, they have helped me, but haven't they done their work beautifully? I've never seen anything like it, and they didn't do any harm." "Is that right?" said the farmer's wife. "Then what's all that over my kitchen window?" She walked slightly unsteadily towards the cloudy film over the window and tried to snatch it away, but it was stuck fast, like a thick mat of cobweb. "Clean away this stuff immediately, or you'll be for it." Mura walked over to the window and reached up to the fairy curtain. As soon as she touched it, the fabric fell away into her hands, shimmering and light. It was a shawl, sparkling with the colours of 1,000 wild flowers: primrose, harebell, dormantil, bellheather, may blossom, scabious, lady's bedstraw, ivy, all gleaming with light, as if they had been touched with the first rays of the sun at dawn. It was a fairy shawl, and Mura knew that it was meant for her. "Give that here." The farmer's wife snatched up the shawl and draped it around herself, but as soon as she touched it, the fabric turned to ashen grey, and as she walked forwards, it fell off her shoulders. Again and again she tried to put it back, but it wouldn't stay wrapped around her. "It's a curse!" screamed the farmer's wife. "Take it out of my kitchen and get out! I'll not have fairy folks in my house." Myrrha quietly put the shawl around her own shoulders, where it stayed, shimmering again with all the flowers of the wild. Then she walked out of that kitchen door for the last time and never went back. Myrrha knew that gifts from the good people were precious, and so good luck and happiness were hers all the days that she lived. Well, that was a happy ending. I was fearing the worst there. Many of these stories about wild folklore do not end happily, but usually only because of the people that interfere with it and mess around where they shouldn't. Well, that's a good lesson and a good story. I hope you enjoyed it. I was going to go for a little dusk wander in the woods, but I might stay here, safe by the fire now, and watch the sun go down. Good night.